Awkward Insurance. We are still on our journey of exploring job roles in and adjacent to the insurance industry. Because, as I tell my kids all the time, it takes all kinds to make the world go round. If you haven't already, be sure to check out our Awkward Insurance Facebook page where the conversation continues. And don't forget to take a look at our YouTube channel for more awkwardly awesome content that we capture on event spaces. Now, let's get into today's episode with our very special guest, who he says that he's been with Hippo for 2.5 years, but for some reason or another, maybe it's just because I don't really have a good concept of time and space. Sometimes I feel like I've known him longer than 2.5 years, but I'm sure I've known him less than that. But Mark Olson is with us today. He is the corporate director. I'm sorry, the director of corporate communications at Hippo Insurance. And like I said, his bio says that he's been there for 2.5 years. Hippo Insurance is a PNC insurance company that touts offering a new breed of home insurance. I love the new tagline, by the way. You've heard of getting a quote in 15 minutes or less. Well, Hippo says you can get a quote in 60 seconds. So, welcome to Awkward Insurance, Mark.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What I love about Hippo, Mark, honestly, in the times that I've interacted with Rick, either before a stage or on the podcast, he's been on the podcast a time or two, and we always enjoy his presence. He's been down to the Alliance in Austin, too. He's on our board,
Mhm.
but he's also spoken to our teams. But what I really love about Hippo is just the ease of use for their consumable education for the homeowner. As somebody who's in the insurance industry and sells to the consumer, that is the biggest struggle point to get them to listen to how to be an effective homeowner, taking care of their house. Not everything is covered by your insurance, and you do have to take some financial responsibility in your asset. It's really easy to click around on the website and learn things. And I really honestly, and I say this from like the deep bottom parts of my heart, I kind of wish something like this existed when I became a homeowner when I was 21 years old. Because the most I knew about homeownership at 21 was just that you had to pay a mortgage, and I didn't even know what a mortgage was. So I do love that about Hippo. When did you own your first home, Mark?
I'm actually a lifelong renter. So,
Nice.
working in Silicon Valley, which is one of the most expensive real estate markets in the country, it's not really something that I can afford right now. But it doesn't mean that all the home maintenance advice that Hippo provides doesn't apply.
Absolutely.
As a renter, it behooves me just as much to take good care of this house because I plan on being here for several years. Got 4 kids that live with me, and we would like to keep them in the same schools and school district. So the more work we put into the house, and the more that we follow Hippo's routine maintenance recommendations, the better place it's going to be for us to live, and it makes us more attractive renters to our landlord. At least I think.
Do you do the homeowner maintenance or is it your wife? Because it's a role reversal here at home. I'm the maintainer and my husband cooks dinner.
I think it depends on the day and the task. I am lucky enough to live with somebody who is incredibly organized and a very hard worker. So I know anything that she takes on is going to be done the right way. I cook, not great. She definitely wins in that category, but we're both willing to try our hand at stuff. And because I spend so much time talking about home maintenance, there's some stuff that I've learned on the job that she may not know. But the other thing is, I'm also married to the daughter of a home contractor, so we have great resources within our family that we can turn to with questions about how to fix stuff. So I'm
Oh,
lucky.
fantastic. If I had to ask, if you do home maintenance, what's your favorite home maintenance thing to do? Or you said you follow Hippo's home maintenance schedule. What's your favorite item that when it comes up, you're like, yes.
Oh, geez, I've never been asked this question before. I don't know that I have any favorites. Uh, it's it's
It's
not
the
stuff that I.
laundry.
Yeah.
Laundry's home maintenance.
Oh, if we're including chores, I'm good with cleaning. Like I can space out and I can clean the kitchen. I can clean a bathroom. That's the type of work I'm happy to do. I don't mind cleaning gutters, which is super important for your house so that water is always running away from it.
Oh man. Gutters is so cathartic because you can get up on the house. My husband's afraid of heights. So if somebody's going up on the roof, it's me. and he can't follow me up there, which is awesome. I love being on the roof just to get away and see a different perspective. I agree with you. I like the gutters. I think that was my favorite part in my first house too. We had a few ice storms that came by. We get a lot of ice
Yeah.
storms in Arkansas, and branches fell on the house or whatever. I'm up on the roof with a blower blowing snow off the roof and taking down branches while my husband's down there going, "Be careful." I'm like, "I got this. It's fine."
So I am lucky enough to not have to deal with snow and ice, but keeping those clean prevents ice damming. And I understand the value there. Ours still gets full of trash, and it is cathartic to go up there every once in a while and see just the buildup and know that you're getting just to throw it out. The other thing, I'm up there, it feels regularly because my children knock balls onto our roof on a regular basis or frisbees. I don't know why. They all should be much better at the sports they
It's
play.
the best place for them, don't you know?
Apparently so.
Something happened on LinkedIn recently. I think I saw it over the weekend. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Have you heard of the LinkedIn roast AI?
Ooh, I have not, but I'm intrigued. That's quite a name.
It is so much fun. You'll have to go to my LinkedIn to find the link really easy. But you put in your LinkedIn link and it reviews your profile and spits out the worst things that make you feel so seen. I mean, I've watched a roast, and when I saw it posted, it came from another colleague in the industry, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna see what it's like." I didn't process that I was actually going to be criticized, and
Mm,
I was not prepared for what came back out. But I'll read you a little part that it picked up awkward insurance from my face, or not from my Facebook page, from my LinkedIn profile. It says, "Let's talk about your podcast, Awkward Insurance. That title might just be the most self aware thing about you. Just imagine all three of your listeners tuning in, spellbound by tales of multi line endorsements and subrogation clauses. Riveting stuff. I mean, seriously, I'd rather listen to a podcast on watching paint dry. I'm dead." I sent it to producer Mac over the weekend, and when I talked to him first thing this week, he said, "I didn't realize it was a roast at first. I thought it was somebody who posted a comment, and I was mad for you." What do you think from a communication standpoint? And I'm really curious about this. What do you think from a communication standpoint about posting, I don't know, a roast or vulnerability? Anything that's kind of like this that kind of calls like to some things where you're like, "Oh my God, I probably do only have three listeners."
so I think it's like it's a spectrum. As a comms person, we've always been trained and we pass that advice on to the speakers that we work with to be fairly guarded, to not share too much. At the same time, you got to strike a balance with being approachable to your audience, find ways that you can relate. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have families. We have kids. We have other responsibilities besides, talking about something going on in insurance. And that usually leads to more effective communications when you can share a little bit about yourself or inject yourself into the story. And what you're describing sounds pretty funny to me. I fully intend to try this out after this call, and I am consistently amazed with the new ways that AI is helping us. When you first brought this up, I immediately thought of Tom Brady's roast, and it's pretty funny. It was on Netflix, but some of the stuff that came out in his reaction, I don't think he fully understood what he had signed himself up for either. 'Cause it got pretty rough, and and I definitely wouldn't want to be in his shoes and have that on broadcast to the world on Netflix. But
I can sympathize with that because I wasn't ready for it. I kind of got offended at first. There's way more to it than that because I have a pretty extensive LinkedIn profile. But there's way more to it than that. So I read it to my husband first. And the more I read it, the more I was like, I can't not post this because this is just, it's so funny. Anyways, I loved it. I just had to bring it up. I had my husband put his in. He's got a very short profile. He works for the government, so he really doesn't have a lot to say. It was still pretty funny, but just not as hilarious as that one. Let's kind of dive into some meat and potatoes here. So, you're corporate communications director for Hippo, which is an insurance company. Give me a little bit of your background in corporate communications and why you decided, or maybe it was just the best opportunity out there to join communications within insurance.
Sure. So I've been in communications for 17 years, always in some form of technology. I worked in consumer tech agencies, enterprise tech agencies. When I finally left the agency world behind, I went to Trulia and then Zillow, and I did tech comms for them. So I got a taste of real estate, but still got to stay where I was comfortable in writing about technology. So an insurtech that sells homeowners insurance is kind of a natural leap or step. And it was an opportunity for me to learn about a new industry. And learning about insurance is pretty humbling. It's completely different than anything I've ever worked in before, but it's been great. It's been really good to me, and it's been a lot of fun at Hippo. I joined at a particularly exciting time in Hippo where we are on the verge of hitting a really big goal by the end of this year. So
Oh, nice. I assume that that's confidential.
no, actually, we've shared this. We've been sharing this for almost 2 years. We are about to hit adjusted EBITDA positive by the end of the year.
Nice.
So for to see a startup, I joined after we went public, but to see a startup go from becoming a publicly traded company to that mark of hitting adjusted EBITDA positivity is pretty noteworthy. It means we can do what we say, and it means
Absolutely.
that benefits our customers, it benefits the insurance industry. So it's fun to win, and I think we're on the verge of winning.
Yeah, awesome. One thing that I just thought of as you were talking is we're talking about your history in corporate comms. What exactly does it mean to be a corporate communications director? What's your daily life look like? What is that?
It can mean a lot of things. You have to like writing, so you're thinking about messaging products, messaging responses to a situation or changing market conditions. It's preparing speakers before they do an interview like this with a media member or before they take stage at a an event, either as a keynote speaker or a panelist. It's just lots of different forms of writing and making sure the audience understands what Hippo is, what we provide our customers, and makes them consider choosing us as their home insurer.
You mentioned before that you often have to advise your person, whomever your person is that you're working with at the time, to not share too much. What does that mean?
So it can mean a couple things. First and foremost, you don't want to share any uh, material, non-public information outside of an official communication. So during an earnings call or in a press release, just because that can get you in trouble with the SEC. So that's kind of like at a baseline. You also want to think about when's the right time to tell your story. So especially working in the agency world, I routinely had CEOs that got overexcited about an upcoming product launch and would let the cat out of the bag before we were ready to talk about it. And what that does, it cannibalizes your opportunity. So you really don't want to talk about something until you're 100% ready to share it in as much detail as possible and share it consistently across all your channels. I think you just it's about being prepared and less about worrying about what not to share. I think most leaders are pretty good about knowing what's confidential and what not to share, but it's really just reining in some excitement about a piece of news that will be more beneficial to the company if you hold it just a little bit longer and get everybody on the same page.
Interesting. I think there's a lot of little hidden nuggets in there, even if you transform that into a personal statement about oversharing. How closely do you work with other departments? I mean, marketing, obviously, but customer service, product development, and other areas of Hippo to ensure a cohesive communication strategy amongst everybody. Is that one of your official to do items?
Absolutely. And any good comms person is talking to as many people as possible within their company. It can be collaborative conversations like you have with the product team and thinking about how you're going to position something when you bring it to market and what are the important proof points. You mentioned, the marketing team. That's, while they're focused on the brand, you might be a little bit more focused on the individual or a product and making sure you're consistent with both. so that your speaker is saying the same things that your marketing team is putting into an advertisement.
Nice.
Work very closely with legal. They keep us out of trouble. They
Or they undo the trouble that was caused.
I would say legal and comms have a pretty good relationship in everywhere I've always worked in that they provide really good guidance, especially I'm thinking about our general counsel at Hippo. She's awesome. Over the 2.5 years we've worked together, I've learned to anticipate a lot of her concerns so that when I write something and I show it to her, I've already considered a lot of the things that she would be nervous about or she would think could get us in trouble with. And then I technically report into the finance team, our CFO, and where I work with that group is, in preparation for our quarterly earnings calls. So contributing and editing the shareholder letter, thinking about what we're going to ask Rick McCaffrey, our CEO, to say in an interview, because his audience shifts slightly from talking to investors and analysts to talking to reporters and kind of the information that those two groups are interested in. So it's making sure we're consistent with slight tweaks for
Hmm,
whoever we're speaking
that sounds way more complicated than I would have ever thought it would be.
with. It's if you like to write and you like to talk, uh, it's a great job, and it doesn't feel that complicated. And if you work with great people in insurance who are willing to educate you on loss ratios and things that you have never encountered in your career and feel like a foreign language. And Hippo's got a great culture for that.
Yeah, along that kind of topic, because we can be experts in our fields, but sometimes we have to know more about other fields in order to kind of make sense of what we're doing, right? So, how do you stay ahead of some of that education that you just mentioned, or maybe some industry trends to ensure that your company, Hippo, is their messaging resonates not only with the market, but the consumers and their colleagues in particular?
Ask a lot of questions.
How do you know what questions to ask if you don't know what questions to ask, Mark?
Just assume there's no dumb questions, no bad questions. Comms people get invited to a lot of meetings within an organization because people want to think about, or leaders want to think about how a decision is going to be consumed by an external audience. So in those meetings, you have to be willing to look like an idiot and ask something that you don't know about or you think everybody else in the meeting does know, and then you learn and then you get to apply your craft. I mean, I think comms
Did
people
you say craft or crap?
craft.
I heard crap, but I'm glad it was crap.
There's a freebie comms lesson. Don't ever use crap in an interview. Um, it's getting to know people in the organization. It's asking a lot of questions. It's a lot of reading too. So before you bring a story to a reporter, you should read their last 4 or 5 articles. When I have somebody that's going to an interview, we talk about not just the things that we want that person to say or our goals for that interview, but we also look back at what that reporter's been writing about for the last few months. And we either try and find a way that we can fit into their interests and the story that they want to tell, or we look for things that we might want to avoid that aren't great for us as a company or a brand right now. And that's not a conversation we want to be part of. So you never want to send a speaker into an interview and have them be surprised by something they ask. You can't guess 100% of the time, but if you do a little bit of research, you can have a pretty good idea of where the conversation's going to
I am learning a lot right now. I'm going to have to re listen to this podcast a couple of times. Communications background is not my thing. It's insurance. So when you said don't share too much, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an overshare. So
go.
I'm like anti corporate communications right now.
Yes.
Wow. All right. Final question. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in pursuing a career in corporate communication? You can answer that broadly or even within the insurance industry.
Ooh. The insurance one, I'll start there. Prepare to be humbled. Prepare to suddenly be doing a lot of math that you've never done before.
A lot of math
A lot of
in
math,
communications? Wait a second here.
especially less so on the consumer side. In corporate communications, you've got to understand what uh, the economic drivers are for an insurance company. Insurance companies are a for-profit organization, and you need to figure out what those economic drivers are and how to weave those into your story.
Mm.
And if you've never worked in insurance, it's like learning. It's almost like learning another language. It's completely different than anything I've ever experienced. I've worked with a lot of different tech companies. I've worked in a related industry for Zillow and real estate. Couldn't be more different.
It is like learning another language because we have in our policy forms different definitions for
Oh
what a
yeah,
family member is than what a family member actually is.
that's right.
So you're right. It is like learning another language.
But then in general, if you want to work in communications, you gotta love to read, you gotta love to write. I don't really think your undergraduate degree where you go matters that much. If you have a love of reading and writing, that'll take you pretty far, and you can ask good questions. A marketing background certainly helps. If you understand branding and positioning, those things all translate to communications. But I was a history major, had nothing to do with comms. I did not think I would work for 17 years in communications. I absolutely fell into it. But it's been a great career choice for me, and it's provided a ton of opportunities.
You were a history major and fell into it. How did you fall in?
So I was a history major. I graduated from the University of Texas, realized there was nothing I could do with that degree. I went back to school, got my MBA, also from the University of Texas. And when I graduated my MBA, I was interested in getting into brand management. I was getting those interviews, but they weren't happening fast enough. So I took a job at a small boutique consumer tech firm. I wound up working there for 9 years. They moved me across the country to open up their San Francisco office. It led to leadership roles at two other technology focused agencies, then to an enterprise tech agency, then to more familiar brands like Trulia, Zillow, and Hippo, purely by accident. But I would say at the heart of all of it's reading and writing. If you like doing that, you're going to love a job in comms.
I said last question like 3 questions ago, but now I have another question.
That either means this interview is going great or really poorly.
You said you got you were a history major. Did you get a degree in history?
Yes.
That one? Okay. And there's absolutely nothing you could do with it.
Oh,
I'm gonna challenge you to stretch and think what parts of your history education did you actually bring forward into your experience?
so I would like to say that there is a career path, and it's one that I have a ton of respect for, and that's staying within education and teaching. I have a lot of educators in my family, so I would be remiss not to say what that you can do something with a history degree. I gravitated towards that degree for the same reasons that comms works for me. I love to read and write. History, you get a ton of books, and the tests are predominantly essay based, which came really easy for me. Math or science were much harder, multiple choice is much harder. So it just goes back to comfort level with writing. And that's always been there. Even I think back in high school, English was just always it came natural to me.
Yeah. So you definitely picked up some skills there. I was going somewhere with that.
Oh,
The degree,
please.
because I've got degrees that have nothing to do with insurance. My undergraduate degrees are in criminal justice and law enforcement. And they were, for lack of better phrasing, they were just to get back at my husband, to be honest, because he was in law enforcement and kept telling me I knew nothing about what he does. So I thought, why not go to college and, you know, tell him I know more than him? It didn't work. I ended up in insurance anyway. So I just kind of wanted, and there are things from those studies that I have brought forward into my insurance career. So I just kind of wanted to, because we do have a college level audience at times, I wanted to bring forward that, or somebody who's been to college and still doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up and they're 45 years old, that you can bring forward maybe a misguided, if you will, at the time, degree into the career path and transform it into something else. One of our more recent conversations was transforming some military skills
Mm.
um, into the insurance industry, which was a really interesting conversation and one I wanted to expand on more. But so I did have a purpose for the question, but that was my final question. Mark, thank you so much for being on Awkward Insurance today. I've actually been dying to have this interview with you for a long time, but Rick was always first and foremost, like right in front of everything. So when I saw him at ITI in New York, were you there?
Not this year. I've been twice before.
Okay, yeah. I don't think I remembered you being there, but I can recall different things at weird times. But I did say we're coming up on job roles, Rick, and I've talked to you enough. Could I talk to Mark? And he was like, "Oh yeah, for sure." I was like, "Yes, I'm gonna love this." And I did. I truly enjoyed our time together. Do you have any final words or any last thoughts?
Thank you for having me. For anybody that is considering joining the insurance industry, it's a great one. I've had an amazing experience, and I am very much ready to turn this back over to Rick and let him be the interviewee going forward. He's much better at it than I am.
You did fantastic. Toodles, everybody. Thanks for hanging out and listening to another awkward insurance conversation.
If you haven't already, be sure to join the Awkward Insurance Facebook community. We have an amazing group of people on there.
And for more episodes, head over to the National Alliance website at scic.com. Now go forth and be awkward. Toodles.
That's awkward.